Hello, welcome back to Rigger Knits. On my channel I talk about all things knitting, and today I've got a slightly different video than usual. So usually I would do just general like knitting, like project vlogs and things, like ones where I talk about whips and finished objects and things like that. But today I have got a different idea for a video where I'm gonna walk through for any beginner knitters some good tips and tricks and things that you should buy and things that you shouldn't buy. So let's get into it. Before we do, if you hear my dog panting in the background and my cheeks are a bit red, it's because we've just come back from a walk there now. Some of my credentials before we get into things. I am coming up to my 3-year anniversary of being a serious knitter. I decided January 2023 I was going to learn knitting. I was really bored over Christmas and wanted something to do with my hands, so I just decided I'm going to learn to knit. So I've been knitting for 3 years, pretty much every single day. I have tried all sorts of different constructions and different elements to knitting, like cables, colourwork, lace, baubles, I don't know what else. And I have designed a couple of sock patterns, and I'm just now dipping my toes into garment pattern designing. I'm currently knitting up a sample for my very first cardigan, so just a bit of my credentials. Anyway, I've got some categories of tips and tricks here. So if you're an absolute beginner, I've got a few points here. The very first point I would say is get a Ravelry account. If you're not sure where to find patterns, Ravelry. If you don't know what Ravelry is, basically you make your profile, you can upload what you're working on. Basically you can find patterns. They have a really good search function, and you can say you find a jumper, I want to knit this, you can buy the pattern there, and then you basically start the project on Ravelry. You can put in the start date, you can put in what specific yarn to use, the colors, the dye lots, what needles to use, everything, and then you have notes and then hidden notes as well. So get a Ravelry account. I didn't have a Ravelry account at the very start, and I'm missing so many of my first projects. I don't have pictures of them or anything. And yeah, I think it's just nice as a bit of even a knitting journal, where you can see everything you've knit, and to just start using it immediately. But yeah, it's so handy. YouTube and TikTok are really good resources for learning how to do different things with knitting. So if you don't know how to cast on stitches, if you don't know how to do a slip knot or whatever, or how much yarn you're meant to use when you're casting on or whatever, just look it up on YouTube. There's so many videos. I would say especially YouTube rather than TikTok, just because YouTube's the one I use. If you want to learn different bind offs, if you want to get a stretchy bind off or just a normal knit bind off or whatever, if you literally need to see how to knit your very first stitch, YouTube, it is so good. So that's definitely a great resource. And there's also a few things on YouTube with follow along patterns. You can just literally copy what they say in the video, or there will be a PDF pattern somewhere that you can follow along with it. So yeah, YouTube is a great resource. I would say don't go crazy on buying needles at the very start. The most common needles obviously depends what you're knitting, but for most jumpers and hats and scarves and things like that, unless you're doing something really chunky, I would stick between maybe 3.5mm needle and a 7mm needle. You don't need to get a full set just yet, just hold off on that for now. But yeah, I would advise figure out what you want to knit first, find a pattern for it, find out what yarn you're going to use and what needle size you need for it, and then you could buy a few others a millimeter or 0.5mm up and down the size, just to make sure you're going to hit gauge. But you don't need to buy a full set just yet. So then if you have found a pattern that you're keen to knit, what you can do is you can use the exact yarn that they're recommending, and you're going to have a pretty good idea if the needle size is going to be right. Do a gauge swatch, and if you're off, then obviously up or down, go up or down a needle size. But you don't have to use that yarn. What you can do is, there's a website called Yarn Sub. Google that. You can put in the specific yarn that the pattern asks for, and it'll give you like a load of different ones you could use. But yeah, pay attention to the length of the yarn and the weight of the yarn as well, as in, like, is it 50 grams and it's this like whatever many meters or whatever. And also pay attention to the yarn grip. So is it DK weight, is it iron weight, is it fingering weight, and all the different things. And you should be able to find a different yarn that you can use that'll be okay for that pattern, rather than using the specific one the pattern calls for. That might be a little bit more advanced. Definitely wasn't something I was comfortable with at the very start, but it will be something you'll get comfortable with. So maybe start paying attention to it now. So my next section is what to buy. I haven't ordered this in order of like necessity or anything, it's just what I thought of. I would recommend buy a crochet hook. If you're not a crocheter or you don't already own one, buy a crochet hook, because see, if you drop a stitch, you can use a crochet hook really easily to pick it back up and get it back on your needle. It's something that I've used so many times, and I keep it in my little like Notions little case I have, because I use it all the time. But buy a crochet hook. I think mine's maybe a 2.5mm one, and that works for like pretty much all the yarn sizes, unless I'm working with a super chunky yarn, which I rarely am. So yeah, aim for a smaller one, especially if you're a sock knitter too. If you are a sock knitter, or you're planning on knitting a garment with sleeves knit in the round, I would 100% recommend get the little short needles that are meant for that. I spent so long knitting socks where there was a little jog where I was doing, I can't tell if it's magic lip or traveling lip, but I was pulling the lip out because it was too long, the cable was too long. Just get the smaller needles and you don't have that jog anymore. Or if you want to try DPNs, which is something I tried once and rage quit, then that's a great option too. But if you're not into DPNs, get the shorty needles. Have a little case somewhere, like you can use like a pencil case, you can use a sandwich bag, you can use a makeup bag, whatever, it doesn't matter, with all the notions that you're using all the time. So have your extra cables if you've got interchangeable needles, and the little thing for tightening it. Have a tape measure, you need a tape measure. Have a pair of snips, have stitch markers, have row counters, have like barber cord, pencils and pens, and like a rubber and things like that, or an eraser if you're American. I know what rubber is in American. Just means that all your stuff is going to be kept together, especially your stitch markers, which can go missing so easily. And if you have like a little on the go project, you can just bring this little pencil case or whatever with you with that little project, and you're good to go. And have your crochet hook in that pencil case too. I would buy a nice smelling wool wash. There's so many out there. There's so many that are cheaper, so many that are more expensive. The one I have right now is definitely more expensive, but you use so much less of it than you would like the cheaper one I was buying from Tesco's before. But because it smells so nice, it really motivates me to block a project. I hate blocking a project. See, like rolling it in the towel and, you know, pinning it down and all, I hate that part. But if you know that you're going to have like a nice smelling garment and your kitchen's going to smell lovely, or wherever you're blocking it, it's going to smell lovely because of this wool wash, I would buy a nice smelling one. It's worth it. Another thing I would buy then for blocking is the knit blocking pins. So I know some of these can be really expensive. I was on Amazon today looking to see what kind of stuff, if I just put in like knitting accessories, that they would advertise, and they actually did have a pair of blocking pins that were like 13 quid. Worth it so much. Especially if you're like me, I do tend to like knit jumpers and things like that too short and knit the arms too short and hope that it works itself out during blocking, which it does tend to do. And that's when you really need the blocking pins, because you're going to have to stretch the sleeves and stretch the body and pin it. So buy them. I did try and block some of my first jumpers with just like sewing pins, but it just wasn't working. You would need like hundreds of them, and that's probably dangerous, so get the blocking pins. If you are getting a bit into your knitting journey and you're noticing that you really tend to knit socks and you really tend to use the same size needle for that, or you really tend to like knit jumpers with a specific yarn weight and you're always using, say, like a 4mm needle or something, just buy multiple of those needles. I am a massive sock knitter. I never don't, that makes sense, never don't have a pair of socks on my needles. So I have 2 sets of shorty sock needles in 2.25mm. I've got 2.5 for colour work and also 2.75 for colour work. And I also have 2 pairs of like long, like 100cm and 80cm long circular needles that are also 2.25cm. So yeah, it's just so I always have the option to cast on another pair of socks if I've got so many already on the needles. So just buy multiple pairs of those needles. You can get the exact same ones if you really like a specific one, a specific needle, or you can get like a wooden one, a metal one, and experiment to see what you like best. And the final thing I would recommend for you to buy is a project bag. And the good thing about this is you don't actually have to buy one. I did buy one from the evil Amazon, but it's so handy because it has like these little holes in the top of the bag where you can pull your yarn through. So whenever I've been doing colour work before, I've actually kept the balls of yarn in the bag and pulled it through, and that stopped it getting all twisted. But yeah, it was like 20 quid off Amazon. I think it's great. But what you can use instead, if you're from the UK and you order from Wool Warehouse, they have the option to send their yarn in these little like net bags. You can use one of them. You can use an old handbag, you could use a tote bag. Again, you could use one of those massive like freezer bags, who cares, as long as you've got somewhere where your project and the ball, or multiple projects and multiple balls of yarn, are sitting together. So the next section is things that you don't need to buy. I already touched on the first bit I'm going to mention, but if you're a new knitter, you really don't need to buy like a full set of like interchangeable needles or whatever. Just give it some time, experiment with different kinds of needles. You know, do you like those like metal grey ones? Do you like the stainless steel ones? Do you like those like the wooden ones? Just experiment, and once you know what you knit best with, and once you know that you know it's going to be worthwhile investment, I would buy a set of needles. Don't be tempted to buy loads of different yarns just to have them, or just because, or just to have like, I don't know, an aesthetic little board hanging on your wall. Again, give it time, knit different projects, use different kinds of yarns, you know, use like wool yarns, alpaca yarns, cotton, acrylic, and see what it is you like. But there's no point having a super full stash at the very start. I would definitely recommend buy the yarn for the project. Don't just have the yarn just sitting there, because you'll get really overwhelmed with how much yarn you have in storage. Don't buy straight needles. This should be like the number one thing. Do not buy straight needles. Do not use straight needles. They are horrendous. So if you're like a really beginner knitter and you're like, what are you talking about, straight needles? So you can get straight needles, you can get double pointed needles, and you can get circular needles. And I knit absolutely everything on circular needles. Doesn't matter if it's a jumper where it's like being knit in the round in one piece, or if it's like back and forth and you're seaming it, so you're knitting it flat. If I'm knitting a blanket, which I haven't done that before, but if I was, I would be doing it on circular needles. So circular needles are those ones where you have like the length of the needle. You've got your 2 needles like this, your metal or your wooden, whatever needles, and they're attached by like a little bendy cable here. You can get them in different lengths. So those are circular needles. The reason why I'm saying don't buy the straight needles is I fell into that trap. My first couple of projects I knit on straight needles, and oh my god, it hurts your arms. Like it's awkward. Like you're having to like all the weight of the project starts going down the needle. Like imagine I'm holding it. Imagine the strain on your shoulder and your elbow. It's not worth it. Don't buy them. Just leave it. Just get circular needles. Obviously maybe you might be inheriting some needles from like your mum or your granny or something like that. That'll do at the start to see, are you able to cast on, are you able to knit stitch? But as soon as you can, buy circular needles. You can get them from your local yarn shop or Amazon or other places online for as little as like maybe £4. So yeah, just don't buy straight ones. And then the final thing I would recommend not to buy is like a dedicated blocking mat. You can use a yoga mat for this, which I have done before. I have like quite a thick yoga mat. I've used that before and it worked pretty well. And then I was in Tesco's and I saw these like children's like play mats. So those ones, they like click together like a jigsaw, but the pieces are like this size, so they're pretty big. That's what I use as a blocking mat. It has numbers in it that you can like pull the numbers out so that there's like holes, where like a hole where it says 1. Yeah, I just keep the numbers in there. Maybe eventually when I have kids they will use that to play on, but for now it's my blocking mat, and it was so much cheaper than if I were to buy a specific blocking mat from like a yarn place. The final section I have in this video is general tips. And apologies, I do have this all listed on my notes app, so I might be like looking down to read it. The first one I'd say is if you're knitting for yourself, measure yourself and have that in like a note on your phone or write it down or something, and just re-measure yourself every few months or whatever, just to make sure your size is the same. It's so handy. A lot of the time I get really caught up in I need to cast on this jumper right now, where's my tape measure? I don't have it. I have the needles, I have the yarn, I need to go right now. I just go into my notes app and see what my last measure bust size was and see what size I need to knit for that pattern, and away I go. And I don't have to like faff around with, oh, take my jumper off, get the tape measure out, measure myself. It's there. So definitely I would do that. Have your bust measurement. If you're going to knit things like dresses and stuff like that, or trousers, have like a hip measurement too. Pretty sure that's like the only one I really care about is my bust measurement really, but you can also have like a waist measurement and things like that in there. If you're knitting socks, measure the ball of your foot, like that's the circumference of your foot is going to be the ball. Measure that, have a note of that, because a lot of sock patterns will just go off that measurement for your foot. Yeah, just have it handy. A lot of patterns will tell you to do a specific kind of rib, like 1x1 rib, 2x2 rib, 2x1 rib, whatever. Half twisted rib, who cares? Experiment with different kinds of rib and find out what you like the most, what stretchiness each kind of rib would give you, and just use that. So like for example, my absolute favourite rib is half twisted rib. I would do that over 1x1 any day. I also do really like a 2x1 rib as well, but the only thing you need to pay attention to there is 2x1, my stitch count needs to be divisible by 3, whereas 1x1 rib, half twisted rib, it needs to be divisible by 2. So you just need to, if you're going to change what kind of rib you're doing, you need to pay attention to how many stitches you need to have. My next tip would be learn how to hold colour work and how to like catch floats and things like that. That is something that I really struggled with before, but I've done a couple of colour work projects since, and now I know how to do it and it just like flows so easily. just to give this a bit of context, I'm an English style knitter, so even when I'm doing colour work, all the colour work is going to be held in my right hand, and I just make sure I kind of use my fingers if it's two colours. I have one colour over my pointer finger and one over my middle finger, and I kind of just use my fingers to like pick up the different colours. So yeah, learn how to do this. Again, YouTube tutorials will be really, really handy for this. But it is so important that you learn how to hold your colour work and how to catch floats. Otherwise all your colour work is going to be messed up. I'll show you an example. Let me go into my wardrobe behind me. So I'm just leaving my wardrobe open for now. I have two colourwork jumpers here. This is one I did, it's called the Rubinia sweater by Anne Wenzel, I think it is. And I did this maybe a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago. No, it must have been a year ago. And I didn't really know how to change colours in colourwork. And my like, it looks like this. Like, can you see the way it's all kind of at an angle? And it's because I was constantly twisting the yarns all the time, which is something you don't want to do. I'll not get into it too much. I'm not going to do a full tutorial, but yeah, it's constantly like at an angle and twisting. Whereas this jumper, if I just turn it the right way out, this is the porcelain sweater, and I just finished this one a couple of weeks ago. And the floats are so much prettier. What do you say? Oh, that's perfect. That is gorgeous. Look at that. Even down there and everything. So you can see that the floats are straight, and it's because you do just need to drop the yarn. If you're knitting with green for a little bit, just drop the white yarn, and if you're knitting with white for a little bit, just drop the green yarn and just knit like normal. That's my advice. But yeah, learn how to hold your floats for colour work if you're interested in doing colour work. Okay, my plant might have moved because I had to move out the way to get in the wardrobe. But my next tip would be always have an on-the-go project. So I would suggest a hat, mittens, a pair of socks, something small that you can just knit on the go. Especially socks if you're doing like a really uncomplicated pattern where there's maybe no cables or lace or colour work at all. It's maybe just straight stockinette. You don't need a pattern after a while. You can just learn that off by heart and away you go. So I'd recommend just having one that you can knit, you know, on the bus, on the train, at lunchtime, in work, whatever. It's just a bit of a lifesaver to have one. If you are a sock knitter, I said previously, get the little shorty needles for knitting socks, but also I would recommend if you have a pair of long needles for doing the heel flap and gusset, if that's the kind of heel construction you're doing, and also for the toe decreases, because you need to be able to keep stitches either on hold on your cable, or you just need to be able to spread them out over two needles and have them parallel whenever you're doing like Kitchener stitch at the end. So yeah, I'd recommend also having the long needles for that when it comes to sock knitting. Speaking of Kitchener stitch, there are great YouTube tutorials for how to do a Kitchener stitch, like graft and also Italian bind off. And I have done those so often. I used to watch the video every single time to make sure I was doing it right, but now I know it off by heart. I don't need to watch the videos. So my recommendation here would be look up how to do those on YouTube, watch them every single time. You'll eventually get into a flow where you don't need to watch it for every single stitch you're doing, but just at the start. And then eventually you won't need to watch the video anymore because you'll know how to do it. So yeah, those are really highly used techniques in a lot of things that I would knit. Maybe not a lot of things that everybody else would knit, but yeah, watch the tutorials and learn how to do it off by heart. I mentioned it earlier about doing a gauge swatch. 100% recommend doing a gauge swatch for every single project you do and blocking it. That'll be able to tell you if you're a loose or a tight knitter. Me, for instance, I am a loose knitter, I think. I tend to have to go down a needle size, so yeah, that would be a loosenator then. Yeah, if you do the gauge swatch, you're going to know if you need to go up or down needle size. So I would definitely recommend always doing gauge swatch, but also just knowing in your head, do I tend to need to go down a needle size or up a needle size? Because that way then you could know, okay, it's telling me to do a gauge swatch in 4mm needles, I'll just do it in 3.5 or 4.5 instead and see where that gets me. So I'm always a looser tight knitter. Once you have your pattern that you're going to knit, I would recommend either printing it out so you have it physically, or downloading it so that you have it, you know, on your laptop, on your iPad, on your phone or whatever, and you can go through and like underline or highlight or whatever all the stitch counts and row counts and whatever for your specific size. Also, a tip that I should follow myself but I never do is just read the whole pattern. I don't do that. I just read the part I'm looking at and maybe the next section to see what's coming up, but you really should read the whole pattern. Another tip I would have is always, if you're stopping your project, have a row counter with like your row number on it, or if you don't have a row counter, write it down somewhere on the pattern in a note somewhere on your phone. Especially if you're like in the middle of a row and you've stopped and like it's like not just stockinette stitch, say you're doing like, I don't know, cables or something like that, maybe write down also what your last stitch was. Because so many times I've put down a project and not picked it up for like weeks or months, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here anymore, and you spend so much time trying to figure out what's going on. Just write it down, save yourself the hassle. I did touch on Ravelry before, but I want to mention it again. I would definitely recommend using it and taking pictures of all your projects so that you can use it as a bit of like a knitting journal to show yourself how far you've come since your first project. I would also recommend keeping a note of the needle size and what yarns you use, because if you ever want to knit that again, then yeah, you don't need to do a gauge swatch anymore. You can just pick the same needle size and the same yarn and away you go. Yeah, I just think it's so handy, and it's like really like underrated and underused in my opinion. Another tip I have that I think could be potentially a controversial one, knit for yourself as a priority. It is so easy to get tied up in gift knitting and losing your motivation for knitting by not doing things for yourself. So definitely knit for yourself as a priority, especially at the start, because you might think that you've got it all sorted out and you can knit a jumper, but in a year you're going to look back and you're going to be like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that instead of like weaving in my ends, or I can't believe I did that whenever I went to change yarns or something like that. Knit for yourself as a priority until like you're comfortable enough to be able to do gift knitting. And yeah, it's just so much pressure knitting for other people, so give yourself a break at the start. My next tip would be test out different techniques. You know, don't let yourself say, oh, I can't do that, it looks so difficult. Don't just do like stockinette jumpers all the time. Try different patterns, like do look out colour work that looks cool. Do try cables, do try lace work, do try raglan, try different kind of jumper construction where you're knitting it all in pieces and seaming it up. Drop shoulder, try German short rows, whatever. Just try it all, because you're not going to get better unless you try it. And to be honest, so many of the patterns out there in this day and age are so good for explaining exactly how to do that you may as well just try. My next tip would be learn how to read stitches. So stitches have like a leading leg, and you need to make sure your leading leg is in the right position. Just learn how to read your stitches so you know if you're accidentally doing a twisted stitch or not. Also learn how to count rows. It may sound like silly, but it's like slightly more difficult than it sounds. It's hard sometimes to tell what stitch to start on, but learn how to count rows, and you can do this all from like TikTok and YouTube tutorials as well. Also how to pick up stitches, so if you've dropped a stitch or you're going to pick up stitches for like the sleeve of a jumper, learn how to do that. Another tip about Ravelry is it is a great resource for seeing what kind of yarns other people have used and what kind of like colours they've done and things like that. So what you can do is go, if you've like found a pattern you want to knit, you can go into the projects and see what other yarns people have used, and they'll put in the colours and stuff too a lot of the time. So you can get a lot of inspiration there. Otherwise, if you have like, if you're looking online at a yarn and you're like, I can't really tell what that's going to look like in person, what you can do is search for the yarn on Ravelry, and you can go to projects and see what people have knit with that yarn, which is so it's saved me a few times from buying yarns that on the website look like one colour and then everybody's projects are a completely different colour than I thought. So yeah, it's I love Ravelry, just get it. Another tip I would have for you is if you are especially shopping in person in a yarn shop, do not be fooled by a pretty hank. If it has all these colours going on, it could be self-striping, it could be variegated, it could be like colour pulling. Look it up online as well and see what people see if people have knit with it and how their projects look, but do not just see this like gorgeous, like all these colors in this hank, and then you pick it up and then when you start knitting with it, you're like, oh, it's insane. So just beware there. Another tip about hanks, if you do buy hanks, so those are the ones, if you don't know, that are like twisted. I'll insert a picture here of one of them. They're like twisted like that. You need to like slip off the label if there's like one wrapped around it. You need to like unwrap it from the way it's wrapped up and snip all the little bits that are like holding it together, and then find the end, and you're either going to need a Swift and a yarn winder, or you can use your knees and your fingers or the backs of 2 chairs and your fingers. So what you're going to want to do is whenever that hank's all free and it's like open like in a big like loop, is you can put it over your knees, get the end, and just start wrapping it around and turn it into a ball that way. Or if that's a bit too painful, because it'll take you a really long time to do that, is put it over the backs of 2 chairs and wrap it around your fingers and do it that way. You cannot just knit straight from a hank because it will get so tangled. So please wind your hanks. This is another thing that will come with practice, but learn if you are a monogamous knitter or if you need multiple projects on the go at once. I personally thrive best when I have like 2 projects, maybe a pair of socks and like a jumper or something like that. That is my ideal amount of projects. But for a wee while there before Christmas, I had a jumper for me, a jumper that's a gift that I'm still not finished, 3 pairs of socks on the go at once, another jumper that was a gift, and then 2 summer jumpers that I put down. That's like, I've lost count, 8 or 9 different projects, and I was so overwhelmed. I finished one of the jumpers and 2 of the pairs of socks and put the 2 like summer jumpers aside just to forget about for now, and I feel so much better. So now I've just got 2 jumpers and 1 pair of socks left in my little project bag, and one of the jumpers is very nearly finished. Woo! So much less stress. I can't believe how stressed I was getting about knitting, but just learn what way you like to work, and yeah, just work around that. Don't push yourself. Don't make yourself finish a project if you're getting so bored of it that you need to cast on something else. And don't cast on something else if you're getting really stressed out about the amount of projects you have. Another piece of helpful advice I would have, which is something I really did, was a lot of like increases and decreases I would have to look up every single time and go into like Google Images to see what the crack was there. What you can do is have like a note on your phone or write it down on a piece of paper. Make one left means you do it this way and write it down in a way that makes sense to you. Make one right is this way. Slip knit, you do it this way. And if you're doing it on your phone, you can take like screenshots and stuff and add that into like the note on your phone. So like for instance, people would always say, oh, what is it? Make one left. They would say, Oh, I can't even remember what the thing is for it. No, I can't remember it, but I know I've got a different way of remembering make one left in my head. So make one left, I would always think, and maybe it's because of the way I hold my needles or something, I don't know, that I'm going into the back lip. So I'm knitting basically a twisted stitch to do it. I'm going into the back lip. So I would think back lip is make one left. But people say something else. I can't remember what it is. It's gonna annoy me now. It's editing Claire here. It's I left through the front door. I'll be right back. Have your way to remember it. Put it on your write it down in a note that makes sense to you, and just refer to that every single time. And if it helps, you can also, if it's like a note in your phone, add like YouTube links or TikTok links or whatever, and just look back at those all the time. Another tip I have is learn how to weave in ends and learn how to join in a new piece of yarn. It's not a case of like tying a knot ever. You can't do that. You can do something called spit splicing, or is it called spit splicing? Maybe it's water splicing, but I've seen people do it by like licking the yarn. It's not something I've ever tried because I don't know if I would trust that to stay together, but yeah, you need to learn how to weave in your ends. YouTube's great for this. Again, so many tutorials that are about 20 years old that you can go in and have a look at there. And yeah, joining in a new ball of yarn, there's so many different ways of doing it. Just find the way that makes the most sense to you and gives you a nice like finished result at the end. But yeah, you need to learn how to do that. It's not as straightforward as it sounds. And my final tip of this whole video is, I know a lot of people are going to be knitting petite knit patterns. I love a petite knit pattern myself too. Her patterns themselves are great. I think they are so good. A lot of them I would say are beginner friendly. But she also, whenever you go on to like the pattern listing on her website, she has a load of videos there, and they're all in, where is she from? Denmark. They must be in Danish then. Is she Norwegian? I don't know. They're not in English, but they all have subtitles, and those tutorials are so good. She'll like link them, and you can tell she's not knitting the same. I don't even know if it is her that does that or somebody else, but you can tell that the jumper she's knitting isn't the same one that she's linked this video to, but the techniques are the same. So 100% you look at the videos on her website for your specific pattern, because they will be a lifesaver for you. I think her video for Italian bind off is the one that I would always go back to learn how to do it. So yeah, it just shows they are really good. So that was the end of all my tips, tricks, what to buy, what not to buy. If you are a new knitter and you have any questions, throw them in the comments below and I'll respond back. Even if you just want like pattern recommendations for something to knit, I can maybe give you some recommendations of things I knit whenever I was a beginner knitter, and hopefully you find that helpful. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, subscribe. I'm hoping to do a video every, ideally 2 weeks, but it probably will be every 3 or 4 weeks. Otherwise you can find me on TikTok. I try to do like Whip Wednesdays and things like that on TikTok, and whatever just comes into my head. My TikTok is, I have to check. My TikTok is Ruger Knits with no space, spelled exactly the same way as this channel. Otherwise it's Claire Joy _. I don't know what way it'll come up if you search it, but that's my TikTok. I also have Instagram, which I do try to be a little bit more active on. You know, I try and do stories and finished object photos and things like that, so I would love if you followed me on that as well, and that is also Ruger Knits, same as my channel name. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you somewhere, if not here in my next video, then hopefully on TikTok or Instagram. But yeah, thank you for watching. Mwah! Bye.